who's less likely to get called back on an application, who's more likely to get paid less for the same job, who's more likely to get fired without cause. And you would agree then that all of these competitive minimums are entirely subjective to the person who is hiring. When it comes to picking among qualified candidates, the thing that you says makes any one candidate above another one is entirely subjective and arbitrary. I guess as it ties to DEI, as long as if standards aren't being lowered, I don't know if I necessarily care about diversity measures. My biggest thing is like quotas and standards. Cause like if a woman can fly the plane just as good as a man, I don't care if she was hired because she was a woman. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, well, nobody cares about that. Like,
which to me,
the black people and the women can fly just fine.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I mean is like DEI is supposed to be this sort of diversification among qualified candidates. So, and I think that's kind of what gets lost in the conversation is, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of people talk about it like, okay, well, if let's say a airline, they need a pilot, they need a black pilot, they're just going to walk out on the street and find a black guy and say, hey, you're black, come be a pilot. They're still picking among people who passed pilot academy, who passed the test. Like it's still qualified candidates.
I mean, here's the thing. Does it lower safety? Initially, yes, but because, so like, let's just say, hiring is competitive at the moment and you have a lot of strong candidates, people with a lot of airline experience, and to choose from. Well, obviously you're going to take a lot of those, but where you can, what's competitive for the white male, the type of experience, you may not need your hours and experience as high if you fit one of those minority categories.
I don't know if that pans out like in any way. And then two, again, like we just said, I don't think experience dictates quality. If we're talking all other considerations equal, and then a white pilot with more experience than the black pilot, there still could be.
I don't think that's relevant here because it can go both ways, but it doesn't matter because it's not, you're just saying, well, the black pilot might actually be a better pilot than the white guy who's got more experience. Of course, obviously, that's true, across the board, and it can go both ways. The less experienced white guy might be a better
I think
pilot than a more
you're kind of missing
the
point that I'm trying to make, which is when it comes to picking among qualified candidates, the thing that you says makes any one candidate above another one is entirely subjective and arbitrary. So why is one of those subjective arbitrary decisions like experience more than a separate one like diversification or something of the sort, right? They're all subjective and arbitrary.
A qualification for flying airplanes.
Because diversification is a benefit. I think that you can have a diversification of your experiences, of your cultures, of your perspectives. A way that I always like to detail this is if you're in a math class, right, and you're solving for X, and the only way that you can think of to solve for X doesn't work, you might need someone with a different perspective to tell you like, hey, instead of adding, let's try subtracting, right? So I wouldn't think diversification is a main thing. I don't think it should be one of the main things. I don't think it should even be a big thing. But if we're talking among qualified candidates, especially in an example where we're saying all things are equal, then maybe that could be the subjective thing that puts you above another person.
If all things are equal, then fine, whatever. They got the same experience, but like.
Well, except for experience. That's what I'm saying is like all things equal. One has more experience, but then one has this other subjective thing that is more than the other person. Why should experience be taken over this other thing? Like they're all subjective.
They're low. It's not qualifications. As far as I'm concerned, as far as we are in this industry concerned, that means you meet the qualifications to be the airline pilot. You have the airline transport pilot certificate, which means you have, or you could have a restricted, but essentially 1,500 hours. You can get a job now at an airline. You can apply and you can legally be hired. You meet the minimum qualification.
So hold on. Before we go on, do you agree then that anything past then is subjective for qualifying?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. But everything else after that, we call this competitive minimums.
And you would agree then that all of these competitive minimums are entirely subjective to the person who is hiring?
It's really tough to say. I mean, obviously race would be subjective, obviously personality would be subjective, things like this, but like hours, it's just like, you know, if it this is how it goes. The more like when times get tight, when there's a lot of pilots on the street and these airlines get picky, like they raise the hours. Like that's what they do. Like they don't say, now you got to be black in order to get a job here.
Right. But I mean, but again, like we agree. I don't know where the disconnect is because we seem to agree that qualified is more of a line that you pass. And then once you pass that line, you're qualified.
Well, because you're focusing on what other people focus on, where they, like the Charlie Kirks of this world, you're acting like I'm a Charlie Kirk. I'm not here saying, oh, I see a black guy. I hope he's qualified. I know he's qualified, and he's probably a good pilot.
Yeah, no, I do want to be clear. I'm sorry if you feel that way. I do not want to group you in with Charlie Kirk. I actually think you are a pretty genuine and respectful person. So I would never try to group you with the Charlie Kirks of the world. I guess I maybe don't understand exactly what your point is, because I guess if I'm trying to steel man what I think you're saying is, it seems to me you're saying that, well, it seems to me what you're saying is that in order to get these kind of diversity measures, they're fast tracking people of color, women, in a way that they won't fast track other people. And because of that, the quality of who they're hiring is going down a little bit because of like lesser hours or the competitive kind of minimums.
Let me just put it to you this way. If I was a black female, I'd have gotten to a better paying job faster, and I'd have made more money in my career.
Well, I don't know, because if you were a black female and you grew up as a black female, you would also have lots of obstacles in life and hurdles that you'd have to get through that you didn't have to as a white male.
If you're going to birth, though, I'm talking about two people come out of college at age 22, 23, and then from that day forward, the black female is going to have more opportunity in her career than the white male.
Right, but who fought harder to get there?
I guess statistically, probably the black female, but at the same time, that's not necessarily true either. It could be.
And then who has to fight harder after there to succeed? Like, of those two people, who's less likely to get called back on an application, who's more likely to get paid less for the same job, who's more likely to get fired without cause?
Oh, okay. So listen, when we have pilot unions, so it's all based on seniority. Nothing's based on merit. So once you get there,
I just mean just because you made kind of like the broad statement of like a black female coming out of college and then a white male coming out, the black female is going to have more opportunity. And I would disagree with that because, one, I think you have to take into account.
In my profession.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess I don't know the specific statistics in your professions, but if we're just talking about working in general, black females are the highest likelihood to be fired, the highest likelihood to not get a call back on an application, and they have the biggest pay gap. They get paid.
Well, that sucks. That sucks for them. But in my profession, they're more likely to be interviewed, more likely to be hired, and then
I just don't know if that's statistically true.